Brooklyn and Queens, the Bronx and Harlem, the Hudson and the Nile, the torrent and the roaring stream, tonguing snabs, tongue spark harmonics, buckled lines, row house hollers, snap and tap tongue, open pace turn tuck, swing outs in the morning hush of the cotton fields. And the great pity is still breaking in Georgetown, still flowing past bankside confluences of Hamlet folk just getting by, haunted by those hold-eyed skulls that peer up at the moon from the beds of dry Mississippi tributaries. They're better off, they think, than most folk who live to see it all unfold. And the batter mantis is still free playing in Jamaica, Queens, fibrillating continuums of breath, click, beat and chime, tamping hearts, tom-tomming to the pulse of a reed. Roach rhythm rounds and thunder, snap and tap tongue, open pace turn tucks, swing outs in the morning hush of cotton fields. The lifting spirit is, and all here is free playing. You know the situation, you see the situation, you react. You know the situation, you see the situation, you react. And the eternal voice Coltrane is. His black people slowly moving, Harlem faces slow dance in the blue night air. His black people moving against the drum pressing hearts is Coltrane is. Improvisation on Larry Neal, it's Central Park, and his hand was holding the handle of his battered sax case, like it was the hand. Anyway, it wasn't that one. That's quite in good order. It's the soprano.
Oh God, I know.
Seeing an upholsterer.
Okay.
Sorry, I was a bit hard. His hand was holding the handle of his battered suitcase. Battered, I better put that in there, battered sax case, like it was the hand of a comfortable lover, both knowing just how and why their knuckles locked. And Brother Evan was walking by Central Park, and he tapped the window of a waiting yellow taxi, which slowly lowered. And Brother Evan pushed the bell of his soprano saxophone into the open window and played 1,000 notes. And the driver said, "Okay, buddy, get in. I know just where you're going." And as they drove through the city, Brother Evan played 1,000 notes out to the crowded sidewalks, and 1,000 notes to the chained door of the bookstore where Milford Graves played Saturday afternoons on a mezzanine floor. At Washington Bridge, homegirls were jumping to the swing rhythms of a double Dutch line. Oh, joyous knot of legs and laughter, Sister Faith beaming down from the sun trap of a tar roof in the Heights. And Brother Evan played 1,000 notes, and we're all jumping now. The whip bend, the blur curve and peak, the unforgiving snags of a low line, a line to glide through, 1,000 notes on the dances of a turn swing, and we're all out soaring high over red Ferris towers, and 1,000 notes beat and skim Hudson waters. Turns call, shrill communicants, fly dancing to the holler of the weaving brass seahorse. And you're in your New York, and I'm in mine. So think of nothing but 1,000 dancing lines, 1,000 notes folding back to polyphony, desire machined in breath, ensembles of the self in 1,000 notes. Brother Evan was walking by Central Park. His hand was holding a giant conch shell, their fingers entwined, both knowing just how and why their knuckles locked. And Brother Evan played 1,000 notes, bell to the blowhole of the meditating conch. And all of Central Park stopped at the sound of a thunderous om. And they say the time of wonder has gone. But I say it waits for us in moments we cannot foretell. And in Fort Greene, Brother Evan played 1,000 notes, and Brother Cecil hammered hammers, Berlin rounds and Berlin riffs, pivoted on a 2-2 by-our phrase. Space expands into itself, a universe of energy in a mouthful of air, and the meditating conch, sitting zazen on a timber bottle box. He's restless, distracted by the now, and the paradox of the chirality of its lungs, vexed by unfathomable rongo lines, but knowing every reed has its own sound, and every man his own sorrow, and every reed and every reed splits the way it needs to when the time comes. Evan's very into science. So am I just never studied it. When it came to understanding a bit of science, I got as far as Boyle's law, but didn't understand that. So the only bit of Boyle's law that I know about, I've rewritten to be relevant to this evening. Bailey's law dictates that the pressure of Evan Parker is always proportionate to his volume. I don't know what the original means. I've got a clue what that means. Anyway. 4. When asked about the meaning of monoceros, Chat AI gave me these words. It's a mythological beast, part lion, part stag, part horse. It's an obsolete term for a one-horned rhinoceros. It's a fish, such as a swordfish or sawfish. It's a junior synonym of the sea snail genus Chorus. It's the binomial name for narwhals.
That's it.
It's a 1978 album by Evan Parker. That is Chat AI. Seems to fit very well in that company. 5. So play me another solo, Evan Parker. Tell me tales of unicorns, of the winged bird of the vermilion sun. Hook, drift and shuffle, tie a rope to a stone wheel, heave it over awkward topographies. Breathe the Bustrophidian flow, sounding in alternate directions, not identical through winding verticals. And tell us, Evan Parker, can any of us turn the same furrow twice? And do you remember that Books and Records dive on Spring Street, where Steve Dalachinsky put his hand into the void and pulled out his own tongue? It lay on the counter before him, ugly as a fat fluke, accusing his ears of being jazz snobs. And do you remember that Books and Records dive on Spring Street, where Brother Evan put his hand into the void and pulled out his own lungs? And he found that they were as long or as short as he wanted them to be. And Brother Evan dreamed of their oneness and could not in all reality tell where the sax began and his lungs ended. 6. A little bit of Trane dropped in here, I think, in case you're getting anxious about it. In 66, Frank Kosky asked Trane if he agreed with Malcolm X, and Trane replied, definitely. And Kosky asked him if there was a relationship between the new music and Malcolm X's ideas, and Trane replied, music is the expression of the human heart, of the human and of being. And so it does express just what is happening. It expresses the whole thing, the whole of our human experience at any particular time. 7. Albert Eiler came to Sweden because in Europe, he said, people listen more. And Brother Albert packed his trunk in Cleveland, Ohio, folding in just 4 leather suits, and each of them was green. That's a true story, actually. In Stockholm, Brother Albert played Latin and blues just enough to cover his rent and went out at night to old town jazz dives to listen to visiting American jazz musicians, some of whom came from Cleveland. And Brother Albert attended every night both shows of a week-long residency by Cecil Taylor, Jimmy Lyons and Sonny Murray. And Brother Sonny, noticing the guy who came every night, both shows, wearing a green leather suit, he thought he recognised from the window of a tailor's shop in Cleveland that hadn't seen for a while. Said to Brother Albert,
I didn't know that.
why you come here every night? And Brother Albert said, because I've been waiting for you guys to emerge. And Brother Albert took out his sax and played Ghosts and Spirits. And Brother Sonny asked him, where'd you get those tunes? And Brother Albert replied, they're old Swedish folk tunes. I learned them in the army. 8. Brother Sonny was fearful of the mob. He used to say that they'd broken both of Brother Cecil's wrists in a mauling outside a Manhattan East Side club that left him silent for 2 years. And Brother Cecil took up yoga and writing to fill the gap. And Brother Sonny one time said, when he was set up and well known around the world, that he didn't want to play more beats like the fast kids who were coming through. He just wanted to get more from the beats he was already playing. To get that third thing, that third sound that flies when 2 beats are played rapidly together, a sound conjured from the inherent possibilities of air. Does anyone else remember Wade? I never knew his last name, but I always used to see him at shows, especially the best new loft bands. He used to stand outside on Bond Street between Riv B and the Ladies' Four with his little black book. Wade kept a record of every gig he went to with full personnel dates and all. And David Murray knew him. And one night we were standing outside Riv B when I caught sight of Wade writing something in his book. Dave and I were talking about all the shows that same night of people we wanted to see. Here, Rigby, the Tin Palace, in Byron, the Village Gate. I said I felt bad, that I was probably missing something great somewhere else. No, it's cool, David said. We must be at the right gig because Wade's here. Wade's little black book is like the Maltese falcon. Okay, 2 more. Evan. This is a poem by a guy called Don L. Lee, so we're back on Coltrane for him, called Don't Cry, Scream. For John Coltrane, from a black poet in a basement apartment, crying dry tears of "You ain't gone." Into the 60s a train came. Out of the 50s was a golden boxcar, riding the rails of Novation, blowing amelodic, screeching, screaming, blasting, driving some away, those paper readers who thought manhood was something innate. Bringing others in, the few didn't believe that the world existed around established whiteness and Leonard Bernstein. Music that ate, murdered our minds, we reborn, born into a neoteric aberration, and suddenly you envy the blind man, and you know he will hear what you'll never see. Your music was like my head nappy, black, a good nasty field with tangled songs of a people playing the sound of me when I combed it and combed at it. I cried for Billie Holiday, the blues. But we ain't blue. The blues exhibited illusions of manhood destroyed by you. Ascension into Soul Train, gone on a trip. He left man images. He was a lifestyle of man makers, an annihilator of attaché case carriers. Train done went, got his hat and left me one. No, brother, I didn't cry. I just screamed and sing loud. It hurts. Brown babies dying, born done, caught me a train, steel wheels broken by popsicle sticks. I went out and tried to buy a nickel bag with my standard oil card. A blonde having fun with a snag-a-tooth black man who saved pennies and pop bottles for weekends to play other filthy inventions, bebopping to James Brown's Cold Sweat. These men didn't sweat, they perspired. And the blonde's dye came out. I ran. She did too, with his pennies and pop bottles in his mind. And tune in next week, same time, same station, for Anti-Self in one lesson. And to the cow sissies who did Tchaikovsky and the Beatles and live in split-level homes, they had split-level minds and babies, and who committed the act of love with their clothes on. Who hid in the bathroom to read Jet magazine, who didn't read the Chicago Defender because of the misspelled words, and had shelves of books by Europeans on display, untouched, who hid their Little Richard and Lightning Slim records and asked, "John who?" They didn't know any better, brother. They were too busy getting into debt, expressing humanity and taking off colour. Some heard you and were wiped out, spaced. One clown asked me during my favourite things if you were practising. And I fired on the motherfucker and said, "I'm practising." No, brother, I didn't cry. I got high off my thoughts. They kept me coming back to destroy me. And that blind man, I don't envy him anymore. I can see he's here and hear he's heard through my pores. I can see my me. It was truth you gave, like a daily shit, it had to come. And can you scream, brother? Can you scream, brother? Because I hear you, under God's will too. Really say Mama. Coltrane, with your extremely heavy and short pilgrimage, full of fleeting eternity, spirit travelling, you were mainly blowing thoughts. Thoughts arise, wind cascades of spicy sweat streaming down your forehead. Thoughts an otter scream. Thoughts of the faceless songs of pink stars squirming in the sky of every woman's womb. Hot, dark, summer afternoon, Coltrane, your Olé so full of romanticism and power. Now we don't have your Olé of love. For a little while, about as long as forever, we won't receive your Olé. On this earth, in this human arena, in the ballroom, cicadas are crying now. Hot, dark summer sits by itself. No balls, no glory, only shadows and memory. You in my memory, Coltrane, your music. People see the colours of your sound so passionately. They listen with ears of dread to the ordeal of your sounds. For 41 years in your history, the sun often rose and sank. Orange sun, African sun, American sun. The taste of human sun rose and set hundreds and thousands of times. In a black soul room, you were sunbathing. That dude the sun shines brightly on your silent back. That dude the sun often cried and became the sweat of blinding music. Diving into a saxophone blown by you, he cried out loud and free. Brilliant blue. Even the orange sun against those black desperate cheeks has begun to cry incoherently. Coltrane almost became a sky. He became a cascade of will, carrying the sounds. He made them fall, pouring them out. And we know the monsoon in Trane's long-lasting solo. The blazing rain continues. We're often beaten with the rainfall of sounds. We are numbed to the deepest room of our hearts. We are soaked through. The door breaks, the mast snaps, the chairs float away. Then we regain that certain consciousness, which is volition, which is desire. It is the cosmos announcing the trivial existence of humans. Alone, carrying his saxophone, He takes giant steps, walking through the cosmos. Though his stride helps us see the blue, unstable vertebrae of Earth, his expression was mostly invisible. Sometimes he mysteriously, shyly buried his face in a cloud. John Wandering Coltrane, even though you are no longer on Earth, we remember you when you were. All of a sudden, we recall your wandering for a while, in the season without answers, with your face hidden in the opaque cloud, while flowing slowly down the river of agony. You met the fish of pleasure, you met love, you met woman, son, friend, God, you met music and its Holy Spirit. Then you became the Holy Spirit, you became the music itself. John Coltrane, your day, that day which was once alive, that day which met someday, that day which dissolved the next moment. Coltrane, I love the days you lived through. I love the seasons of those days which you survived for 41 years. Your music, your voice, your glory and rage, your love and conviction, your God, your Holy Spirit, your cosmos with east and west, its desperation and grief, all those I love and warm and meditate upon. May your spirit rest in peace, our beloved John Coltrane. This for the strong black soul of Saint Coltrane in heaven.
This line is called Miles's Mode, I think, on one record. And on another record, it's called The Red Planet. And on Miles's Mode is called a John Coltrane composition. And The Red Planet is called an Eric Dolphy composition. My theory is that they combine. And Dolphy wrote the tone row, which is, you know, backwards, of course. Excuse that, I didn't come prepared. The tone row, that's very Dolphy. And then that's very Coltrane. And that's my thesis. I don't see it talked about very much, but it's strange that Red Planet is called a Dolphy tune and Miles's Mode is called a Coltrane tune. So their friendship apparently went back to much further than we know about. I think that's a certain point in the 50s, Coltrane was stranded on the West Coast and Dolphy looked after him for a bit, put him up and everything, and while he was working out how to get back to the East Coast. So they were friends from, you know, probably something like 55, maybe earlier, I don't know. But it's a really, really strong friendship. And when Coltrane used to play Dolphy's flute sometimes, and you know, it's like he really missed Eric, like we all do, but more intensely because he was a friend, close friend.